Dietmar, having attended ADIPEC 2020 for the past couple of days, the reality that the world is not going to move away from oil anytime soon was just reinforced. At Siemens Energy, how are you approaching all this?
Hi, Kevin. I'm really excited to meet you today, and I'm very happy that we had this week ADIPEC. ADIPEC was really a testament to all of us that oil and gas is required, but it was also a testament that throughout the pandemic, the oil and gas industry had to reconvene. And ADIPEC was bringing us all together from the energy industry, and we really discussed what is the way forward for the oil and gas industry. So very happy to have seen that this week, that the whole community came together. On Siemens Energy, we are working, of course, along the scheme of the energy industry, and this is the energy transition. So this is about transforming the energy industry into a more sustainable world, to transform the energy world into a more reliable energy system, because at many places we have still no access to electricity. So it's at the end of the day very important that we bring electricity to everybody in the world. 800 million don't have access to electricity. And also to transform this industry by using new technologies, digital technologies. And all these schemes we have seen this week in the ADIPEC, and we are happy that we participated there and that we also have seen that the industry is moving along these lines.
What I found fascinating at ADIPEC was that, you had the perspectives from all the different parts of the world. Sometimes here, I'm in Western Europe, we kind of get carried away with how it works here, but the rest of the world has some very different challenges.
Yeah, looking, for example, at countries here in the region, but also in other places which are still developing, they have a huge demand. I will give an example here out of the Middle East. Iraq, for example, they have a gap of more than 10 gigawatt. In the meantime, it's maybe close to 15 gigawatt, which they need to bring to their citizens. And if you come now and you want to build renewable plants for 15 gigawatt, that's simply not possible. And therefore, they have the oil and gas, so you have to build a bridge with the gas to bring the electricity to the citizens in such a country. And in other countries, they have stepped up already. Looking here, for example, to the UAE, they have done to a great extent. They have an energy mix, which is compromising out of renewables, but also still a lot of gas-fired power stations. They have lifted up their efficiency, and they are now on the brink to develop new systems on top of their renewables, which they have built. And that was all the scheme that we discussed this week during ADIPEC, because the existing oil and gas industry, the transition of the oil and gas industry, and then what is the future ecosystems that we will see, and that will maybe be to a great extent and also shaped by the hydrogen economy as we foresee it.
One of the things I was fascinated by during the week was that in the technical conference, there must have been about 1,000 sessions on all sorts of innovation and technologies. And you mentioned, the hydrogen, carbon capture. There was a lot of stuff around the chemistry, and it wasn't just to say IoT, it was chemistry, material science, and you mentioned hydrogen, and that was a key theme. And at Siemens Energy, you guys have a huge strategy around hydrogen. But what other technologies are you guys looking at?
I mean, we are very much looking into the next 2 decades, 3 decades to drive the transition. And there will technologies like digitalization play also a huge role. So you have existing assets. Nobody will throw the existing assets immediately away. So attaching now digital technologies to that, remote monitoring, upgrading systems to make them more efficient, putting up new control systems which can more efficiently do the control of a power station, reduce emissions, for example, or even increase the power that you generate with that unit. This is the scheme that we are working on. So you have technologies like digitalization, you have technologies like remote monitoring, which are really impacting also now the industry. Also, Siemens Energy announced this week that we are walking away from new coal. So I think that's also an important message that we gave this week as Siemens Energy, that we are not only hearing the message from the world, we are also adhering to it, and we are working in that direction. And we will not do any new coal-fired power stations throughout our business in the future. So that's a huge commitment that we also give. And there's countries that are really still developing these kind of technologies. And that's also a clear message from us that we are not supporting that.
No, it's pretty clear. And you mentioned, and I suppose, look at some of the capabilities that you guys have in the oil and gas industry. One of the things I spent some time looking at was the whole thing around carbon capture. the amount of knowledge around reservoir modeling and the geological structure underneath, that's what's needed if you want to start putting a lot of carbon back down into these reservoirs, right? So there's a lot of crossover from a lot of these technologies.
Absolutely. I mean, the name of the game in the industry is at the moment also to increase the efficiency. And you asked about the technology. So one thing is the digital technology, but also then material science is still to upgrade turbines, so to make them more efficient. We still have countries where we have efficiency of the generation systems, which is in the low 30s or whatever. And the standard of the technology today, when you are in fossil power generation with gas, is 60 plus. So there is a huge thing that you can do. And some of them have old power stations. They have maybe not the money to build new ones, but you can upgrade these systems in order to bring more efficiency to the system here. And this is where you can work on. This reduces CO2 emissions. This reduces the fuel consumption. Many of the countries have also constraints in terms of fuel consumption, and these things are really then helping them. Internally in Siemens, from the material, we are also working very much with 3D printing, for example. 3D printing helps us to make the pieces that we use to put the final element, the turbine or whatever it is together, to produce that in a much more efficient way, in an efficient way also that we can make it better. So for example, the fuel nozzles in some of the turbines, when you print them 3D with a 3D printer, they are much more accurate and much better than when you do it with a normal producing of this material. You can't do it in that way as you could do it when you print them with a 3D printer, and that make them more accurate, that make them better in terms of efficiency, and also shorter in time of production. And this is the kind of materials that and things that we are also doing in our own organization then internally, in order to give it to the customer at the end of the day with the final product.
It was fascinating to see some of the sessions on 3D printing. You know, and some of us, you know, it's printing a plastic pen or a Christmas decoration. These are metals that are in extreme temperatures, and you know, the material science in here is mind-boggling for me.
When you have a turbine and you are looking at the core piece where you have then the temperatures above 1300 degrees and whatever, so you have material that is near close to the melting point of the material itself. You have to print it, so it has to be accurate. Then you have bore holes, or when you print it, it's not a bore hole, but it's still a hole. You have bore holes which is in the accuracy of less than a millimeter or whatever. So and all of them are individually designed. So it's really art what we are doing there, and it's something that enhances the industry really.
Yeah, no, it was fascinating. Now, another key topic throughout the week, and your own CEO brought it up yesterday in one of the panels, was around bringing in new talent to the industry and new ideas, and being open to those new ideas. So how do you do that as well, with while you keep the energy flowing?
I mean, we are engaging with the society. That's very important, that you are not going intrinsically into your own cage and then you sit there and think about what you can do. So we are going out. We are talking to our customers. We are talking to the society. We had a few days ago, we had the Middle East Energy Week. So we engaged with governments. We engaged with customers and with partners, and we listen to them. What do they think? And they bring up new ideas, of course, to us, which we can use and which we can work on, and where we also then go forward while we develop our portfolio and while we develop the energy transition, and how we can support them. There is, of course, dialogues with young talents. Like, we have talent workshops inside the company, but we are also looking to recruit new people that have new ideas. So we have on one hand, we have to adapt our organization to the needs of the industry. On the other side, we have to bring in new ideas, and we are in constant dialogue with universities and also with newcomers to the industry that have maybe different ideas where we can work on. And another element, very important for us, is looking into partnerships. And you maybe have seen also that we are partnering now with Linde in terms of collaborating on the petrochemical industry, how to decarbonize the petrochemical industry, I would phrase it. And that's something where you also get new ideas, because one thing is what Siemens Energy has in mind, another one is what Linde and their experience has, and putting these elements together gives completely new ways in the future then also to do things.
And another key theme of the week was, you know, kind of the integrated energy value chain, where the traditional electric world comes together with the oil and gas. You guys have some of that already with the transmission business, right? So you probably you're a step ahead.
Yeah, the transmission business is, I think, and many people have looked in the past on that as a very old business. It is essential, but I call it it's the internet of the electricity, because at the end of the day, you need the transmission grid to transport the energy, and it needs to be as much as upgraded as possible. And especially when you're looking to the future, the more we take rotating masses out of the grids. So you have today the big power stations, you have the big turbines, and all of them running. They stabilize also to a certain extent the grid. The more you bring in now renewable, which are more fluctuating resources, energy sources, so they are going and coming throughout the day or the night, or wind turbines also throughout the day. So this is really something where you have them to deal with in the grid, and to react to the grid and to stabilize the grid. So we will see a lot of things happening in the grid arena, in the transmission arena in the future. And we will also see that a lot of countries will start to collaborate with each other. In Europe, we have seen it already to a great extent. There was a time when also there was a little bit of putting again some fences around the countries, also on the grid. But in the meantime, we see again they are coming together because they see the need that they have to work together. And just a few examples were that recently in the last days, also Belgium and Germany announced again a new link. Other countries are doing that. Here in the region in the Middle East, we are discussing on the GCC grid, where we have also a lot of participants already, but now we are looking to new participants like Iraq and other countries. Maybe in the future, even Israel will be connected to the GCC grid, who knows? I mean, we have seen recently also developments on the peace treaty here in the Middle East. So there is things and elements which brings the world together. And the backbone of that is, of course, like you rightfully said, the transmission grid. And there will be huge investments also into that area. And also we will see a lot of digital upgrade in that area.
True.
Because at the end of the day, it's not only putting electrons from one part of the country to another part, or the neighboring country. It's really also about using this infrastructure and managing it in a better way. And then you need trading platforms. You need, how do you exchange energy? How can you make sure, for example, that you are buying in a country renewable energy, and you bring it into another country, and the chap there gets the renewable energy and not get some else's energy. So you need blockchain for this. So there will be huge developments that we see in the next years to come, where the transmission grid will be definitely also play an essential and a key role.
No, I agreed, and some recent developments as well, which was mentioned during the week around, you know, the transmission grids for offshore wind and connecting them up to existing oil and gas platforms and in the Gulf and because you can use green energy from the grid rather than burning natural gas or diesel generators, right? It's amazing the efficiencies.
Yeah, I mean, look, for example, at the offshore pieces that we see here in the Middle East, but also elsewhere in the world, they are all operated independently. Usually they don't have a grid connection. Somewhere in the future, there will be a grid connection, maybe DC, HVDC connections, which are really bringing then in a very efficient way the electricity there. That helps, by the way, to a great extent also the oil and gas companies to decarbonize. A great extent of their own carbon footprint is because they are operating these assets, which are still heavily dominated by oil or by gas. And this will decarbonize them to a lot. And it makes them also more efficient in terms of operation. It also takes emission away, of course, and it makes the place where the work is happening offshore or wherever they are, it makes the place also a more secure place, because there is less emissions, but there's also more security, because to run an electrical system is always easier than a full mechanical system.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, last question. We could stay chatting all day, but last question. You mentioned your recent Middle East and Africa Siemens Energy week. Coming out of that, you published your top 10 priorities for a successful energy transition. Anything you heard or saw this week that reinforces some of that, changes any of it?
I mean, we are proud that we did this Middle East and Africa Energy Week. We really were positively engaged then afterwards, when we saw also that when we put the 10 points together, because it was really the outcome out of the discussions with the ministries, with the stakeholders, and with the customers and partners that we had. We were really positively engaged that they all took it so serious, because we have seen it in several publications afterwards. It was used in the media, but also by other partners that have participated. Even partners that have not participated asked us about the 10 priorities, how did they come together, and what it is all about. And it's not new. It's something that was willfully put together by the team that was working there on the MEA Energy Week, because it was the outcome out of the discussion. And the discussion shows that these are the essential points, like bringing electricity to everybody. That's something that everybody wants to do. So bringing electricity to a human being is a basic right. And to accept that means also that the governments can work in that direction. As long as you don't accept these facts, you cannot work in that direction. To bring roadmaps together, I think we had in one of the sessions, we particularly discussed roadmaps. Roadmaps are essentially to transition an energy system. And there you need, for sure, then a clear understanding where do you stand today and where do you want to go. And the understanding was in the talks that we had that they all understand that they are standing at different points. You can easily say, take a roadmap from country A and go to country B and do it there. It will not work because everybody has his individual stand, everybody has individual circumstances, and you need to develop that individually. And that was a big outcome. It's maybe obvious, but at the end of the day, to accept that fact brings the countries into a different point of action, how they want to go about it. And some of the countries are defining now roadmaps which are going the next 20 or the next 50 years. Others are defining roadmaps which bring them the next 5 years now into a position that they can give sustainably energy to their citizens. It also showed that collaboration is very essential. Collaboration amongst partners that are executing such systems and building such systems in the countries. Also, collaboration amongst governments is very essential for that here. So it's not only that you say there is a government and there's a company like Siemens Energy. You also need maybe other governments, you need support on financing and all these stuff. So these are some of the elements of the 10 points that we had. Another point was that we need a flexible and highly integrated transmission grid. We talked about that earlier. So this is something where really at the end of the day also everybody committed that they need to invest into the grid infrastructure. That was, when I look back 5 or 10 years, and I'm quite long here in the region, that was not always the case, that people accepted that they have to put some efforts into the transmission grid. They put a lot into power generation, but not so much in the transmission grid.
Yeah.
And
that was one of the ones that stood out for me.
Yeah. Another element was that we said these things, these roadmaps build the base for the new ecosystems of the future, hydrogen. I mean, when you build now a lot of renewable capacity, you do a lot of energy savings. You will have maybe in the future also surplus of energy. You can use this energy, especially in our region here in the Middle East, in the Sun Belt, or also in other regions where you have a lot of wind or a combination of that, in order to generate hydrogen in the future. This built new ecosystems. And there was a session, one of them, people asked, why did, for example, Desertec didn't work 10, 15 years ago?
Ah, yeah.
And I said then, you know why? Because at the end, in my opinion at least, at the end of the day, at that time, somebody wanted to generate electricity, let's say in North Africa, and he wanted to transport it to Europe, and then it would be used there. What was in for the country where the electricity was produced? There were some solar fields or whatever, some PV fields, and that was it. There was no other need. When you go into a hydrogen economy, you build an ecosystem in a country. You build, for example, a system with a PV, for example, you put a hydrolyzer behind, and then you maybe make synthetic fuels, and you export your synthetic fuels or you export your hydrogen. So you build something in the country. This creates jobs. This creates a system in the country. And you can trade now with another country. So it's a complete new way to do things besides selling electricity to neighboring countries or to countries on another continent. So these elements were all part of the 10 points that we have discussed. And a very last point that I want to mention out of the 10 points was everybody agreed that we need to act now. It's not about starting now to think what can we do in 5 years. We should have a plan what we do in 5 years, but everybody agreed we need to do it now. And that was a key essential, and I was happy to hear the ministers and the partners speaking about this and moving now also in that direction, because that was what we have seen also in the aftermath of the event, that the things were taken serious and that we are working now on that. And there's maybe more to come in the next weeks that you also hear from us.
Ah, okay. It's certainly interesting times. Dietmar, come here. Thank you so much. I wish you well, and I hope to see you in person sometime soon in the near future.
Stay healthy.
I shall. You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.